when I started this 26 years ago, almost no one was interested. You faced ridicule and abuse and dismissal. And now, since I've been on this worldwide wake-up tour, started in England in June, and has been to Australia, across Australia, 4 cities, to New Zealand, to New York, San Francisco, and Los Angeles, and then across a couple of weeks ago to Prague in the Czech Republic, and now to Italy. And for me, it's dreamland, because the interest is tremendous, and also, you know, you get a feel for what's happening by those that stop you in the street. And wherever I've been stopped in the street and asked sensible, intelligent questions about what I'm doing, or people say, you know, I read your books and it's great what you're doing and all that. And when I compare that to 26 years ago, 25 years ago, 24 years ago, 23 years ago, 22 years ago, I would just get abuse or laughter in the street and ridicule. So there is a fantastic change going on, in which people are now in ever greater numbers willing, indeed keen, to look at things they would have dismissed before as far out, as ridiculous, as impossible. But things are changing, people's minds are opening. And I'm also finding the kind of people that it's happening to. I mean, it's not just people, you know, you would expect. It's people in dark suits and fancy ties, who you would call system people. They are now starting to question the system they're part of and how it works, and looking at other ways of explaining the world, other than the one they've been given from cradle to grave by the very system I'm exposing. So it's wherever I go, it's brilliant. And it's always great to come to Rimini, because it's a lovely place. And you know, I've been here 3 times now, and it's great, a lovely place down by the sea and the Adriatic. Lovely sunrise this morning. Oh. Yeah, could be worse.
Okay, excuse me. Maybe it's better if you look at her.
Yeah, okay.
It's more reliable.
Yeah.
La tua vita fermi, e dopodiché dopo questi vi chiediamo dopo, una volta che è finito, se non è Cristo che abbiamo scelto queste forze, abbiamo scelto.
Okay. Okay, David, you answered that your life has often been characterized by invisible force and presence intervention. Well, your book is Phantom Self. So, who or what are phantom for you? They exist, they are just in our mind. Could you give us a definition of phantom?
Well, the use of the word phantom in the new book, Phantom Self, is the illusory self. The self that people believe they are when they're not. Because of the way we are programmed from birth to death to believe in a certain view of reality, people self-identify with their name, their race, their country, their religion, their income bracket, and all these labels that we give ourselves, like I am our label, or whatever it may be. What I'm pointing out, and not just an opinion, with lots of evidence, increasing amounts of evidence to back it up, is that we, in our base form, in our eternal form, in our infinite form, are simply awareness, a state of being aware. So I'm looking at you now, and what is the I that's looking at you now? What is it? Is it my body? Well, no, it clearly isn't, because the body doesn't generate consciousness. It processes consciousness. as increasingly is being realized, and is obvious anyway, the brain is not where consciousness comes from. It is a processor of information and a processor of consciousness, which is another form of information. So when you have these millions and millions of stories now from what are called near-death experiences, where they leave the body because the body dies temporarily and then is brought back to life. The stories they tell and the experiences they talk about outside of the body are incredibly compelling in the way that they are so consistent. And what they say is that when their point of attention, of their awareness, leaves the body, which is I call the body a biological computer, it focuses attention and therefore perception into a tiny, tiny band of frequency called visible light, which is the only frequency band that we can see, or I would say decode into this reality we think we're experiencing. And it's so tiny, it's laughable. You know, mainstream science says the electromagnetic spectrum is 0.005% of what exists in this universe. Visible light is a fraction, a tiny fraction of the 0.005%. We can hardly see anything. So what the body is doing is decoding reality and focusing attention of our awareness in this tiny band of frequency. So when we are experiencing through the body, all that appears to exist is what we see, which is this tiny band of frequency. Although we think it's everything, we can see everything, we can't. It's like a television channel, a tiny television channel. And loads of endless other channels exist in the same space, but on different frequencies. And so when near-death experiencers talk about leaving the body, they talk about this massive expansion of their awareness when they leave the body, when past, present and future all exist in the same moment, the same now, when they can experience and process and understand multiple different realities in the same state of awareness. Why? Because what's happened is, as the point of attention has left the body, because the body has ceased to function, it has, quote, died. It's like saying, my computer died. Your computer dies, you can't get on the internet anymore. You can't experience that band of frequency that the computer puts on your screen. And then, oh, my computer's back. Oh, God, the electricity's come back. Oh, look, there's the internet again. This is a near-death experience. And so when you leave the body and this focus of attention that the body does in this frequency band of visible light, suddenly you become much more expanded awareness, because that's what we always are and always will be, except through the body we only focus on a tiny band of perceived experience reality. So what do we say about the body when someone says, hello, nice to meet you, who are you? They will say their name, they'll say their background, their family history, their job, their religion, their race, their whatever. They'll give a series of labels. But what are those labels? Are they who we are? Of course not. They are what we are experiencing. And what I call phantom self in the book is this belief that the vast majority of people have, because of the way the system works and the programming works. Phantom self is that list of labels, experiences which people perceive to be them, when the real them, the real I, is a state of awareness. And that awareness is having those experiences. And once you self-identify, I am these experiences, First of all, your sense of possibility just shoom. Your sense of possibility starts to relate the narrowness of perception that you have. So people say, what can I do? I've got no power. I have no power over my life. I'm just Ethel Jones that works down the store. Whereas when you self-identify with being awareness, having those experiences, Ethel down the store is simply an experience. It's not the limit of your possibility. It's not the limit of who you are. And the only way that a tiny few people, compared with the global population, can control billions is by manipulating the billions to believe they are phantom self, they are little me, the experiences they're having is all that they are, and pull them out of the perception that I am infinite awareness having that experience. And what happens when you realize that phantom self is a phantom, it's an illusion, it's just a series of experiences and labels, and you start to self-identify with being infinite awareness having those experiences, everything changes. Because now you're not just seeing dots, you're not just seeing pixels. What's going on in the world? It's so bewildering. What's that? No, what's that? Once you get here and you observe the world from here, the pixels become pictures, the dots become pictures, and to you it's an open book what's going on. But the people who are still in phantom self mode, they look at you and they say, you're mad, you're crazy, man, what are you talking about? You know, if you'd have said to someone centuries ago that people would even fly in the sky in machines, what would they say? You're mad, man! It's all about perception. And the only way a few people can control billions is to control their perception, particularly their perception of self. To persuade them that they have no power and thus they have to look to their betters to sort their lives out for them and sort the world out for them. And it's a process of putting people into a perception of little me to get them to give their power away, which they don't even realize they have, to the few, and the few then use that power to control human society. And that's been going on for thousands and thousands of years. And it's about time it stopped. And it will only stop when people start to realize that they're not actually people. What we call humans is an experience. What we are is the awareness having that experience. And when the human body, what I call the biological computer, ceases to function, then that awareness doesn't die, because it cannot die. It is the state of being aware. It just moves on to experiences and realities new, that's all.
Okay. So, we talk about body and soul, if you want. So you have your own idea or your own theory about the physical death of man. Do you think... what do you think when the body die? Also, the soul die, or when the body die, what we really are continue to exist.
Yeah. I'm looking at you now with my awareness, and my awareness is focused on this tiny band of frequency, visible light. Therefore I see you and I don't see beyond it. When my body ceases to function, then I'm no longer perceiving. My awareness is no longer perceiving through the body, and therefore through the limitation of frequency range of the body. Now it's perceiving in an expanded state. That's all that happens. That's all that happens. You know, we have this great fear of death, but that fear of death is the result of an ignorance of life and what life is. when we realize we are awareness, indestructible, eternal awareness, state of being aware, then there is no death. Does the body cease to function and we call it death? Yes, of course. But, I mean, would you want to stay here forever? When you have infinity to explore? What? Oh no, I don't want to explore infinity. I want to work down the supermarket. Right? I mean, come on. So, but because we have this fear of the unknown, which by suppressing the knowledge of life and the knowledge of who we really are, you create this situation where, because of the fear of what happens when the body ceases to function, what we call death, people are terrified of it. You know, oh, what will God say if they believe in religion? Or, oh, well, I'm just going to cease to exist if they believe in mainstream science. And both, for me, are complete illusions. We are a state of awareness. When the body dies, we expand into a greater sense of awareness. This is what near-death experiences are. Just read them. I've read endless numbers of them, and the consistency is unbelievable. Where as soon as they quote, die, boom, expansion of awareness. Why? Because they've left that vehicle which focused their attention in this band of frequency, this source of information we call the world. Because we don't live in a world. We live in an information source, which we are decoding into this reality. And what I've found fascinating on this World Speaking Tour is that I created and set out the presentation first of all in 2 events in England in June. And as I've gone around the world, I keep seeing mainstream newspaper stories and media stories from mainstream science and other sources that are confirming that what's said in the presentation is actually true. You know, I mean, what I've been saying, for instance, one of the endless things that have been more and more confirmed through mainstream sources, and people think that's credible, is that everything is a state of awareness. That what we're looking at is one infinite awareness, which takes multiple forms. You know, my expression of infinite awareness is looking at you now. Your expression of the same infinite awareness is looking back at me. And thus, it's not just humans that are awareness, so is everything. And there was a story just in the last week of a scientific study which concluded that trees have consciousness. Of course they do. And that they actually operate in sort of what we would call family circles and family groups. Now, this is the wonderful thing about this. Well, there's many wonderful things about this time. There are many challenging things about this time, but many wonderful things. And one of them is that the veil is lifting. I mean, that which created the veil is still trying to keep the lid on, but it's increasingly, you know, if you use the analogy of the dike and the holes in the dike and putting your fingers in to stop that. There's too many holes for too few fingers now. This information is coming out. And that makes it a great time. And the other thing is that, you know, the technology now that's coming out, the computer technology, or Wi-Fi, for all the dangers and stuff of that, it does give you an analogy to very simply explain the reality we're experiencing. For instance, if I said to someone who didn't know about computers that in this room, in the hidden, you can't see it, there is a whole global reality. It's a global reality that you can experience in Australia or America or Italy or Britain or South Africa. People that didn't know about computers, didn't know about Wi-Fi, and didn't know about the internet would say, "You're mad, I can't see it, where is it, where is it?" But because people know about computers, it's like, oh yes, I understand that. Yes, you get a computer, you turn it into the Wi-Fi, and you get the internet and all that. That's good. Yeah, I know that. Yes. But that's what the biological computer is doing. Because this universe is a quantum computer. Quantum computers which encode the information in the fabric of reality, in the energetic fabric of reality. And we are, I call it the cosmic internet. We are interacting with this cosmic internet, which we call the universe. And if you have a narrow perception of possibility and a narrow band of awareness, not because you can't have a massive band of awareness, but you've chosen to believe in little me and phantom self, so you have a small band of awareness, you are going to interact with that quantum computer, i.e. possibility, in a very narrow band. So what are you going to bring into your life as you interact with it? A very narrow spectrum or range of possibility. Oh, my life's ever so boring, nothing ever happens to me. And then when you expand your awareness, not because you are Buddha, cross-legged on a mountain, because that's who you are, but you've just got to remember it. Now you're starting to interact with this quantum interactive cosmic internet in a much more expanded way. So as you do so, you are able to pull into your life from this cosmic well of possibility, vastly greater possibilities than you are when you're in that mode, because you're interacting with it on a much more expanded scale and breadth of frequency. Thus you bring into your life amazing things, amazing coincidences, amazing pieces of good luck, and your life becomes an adventure instead of, oh, nothing ever happens in my life, because you are accessing a greater span of possibility than you are in that mode. Everything comes from that. Now, if you're a few and you want to control the many, do you want them there? Oh, I see it now. I see what's going on. Or do you want them there? You want them there. And if you look at the process from when children come into the world to when people go out of the world, it's one long, incessant, unyielding, merciless process of perception programming. It starts with the parents. You come out of the womb, the parents are now influencing your perceptions because they've just downloaded what you're about to download. And therefore they're passing it on to you because they think that's what's normal, that's what you should know. You then, in a ridiculously short time, after entering this world, now you're in a classroom. Now you're sitting at a desk and an authority figure representing the perceptions of the state is now telling you when you have to be there, when you can leave, when you can talk, when you can eat, when you can go home, when you can go to the toilet. And crucially, they're telling you what is and what isn't, what's possible, what's not possible. And they're giving you a perception of reality that's coming from the state. You then go through all your formative years into higher education, constantly, day after day after day, downloading the version of reality that the state has decided is reality. Actually, the state has decided at the real deep, deep, deep in the shadows level, the perception of reality that will keep you in line so that they can control the show. You then go out from your education period, all your formative years, and you go, say, into the institutions of politics, of law, of journalism, of science, of medicine, of the corporations, all these things. And you take with you that core programming of reality. And so all these institutions are peopled by those that have accepted the programming and accepted it so well that they did brilliantly in their exams because they told the system what it wanted to hear, thus they got good grades. Oh, good job. Oh, you're well programmed. Well done. You can have a job. So they are then constantly confirming to each other that this download of normal, which is a Stone Age frickin' nonsense, is how things are. And so a journalist who is doing something about reality, not that they ever do, except very rarely, they won't go to someone who's studied it, say like me, for 25, 26 years. They'll go to a scientist and they'll get the state's song sheet version of reality. If they're doing a story on health, they won't go to complementary practitioners who might have a massive amount of knowledge and success in treating this particular ailment that they're writing about. They'll go to a doctor and they'll get the state's version of that illness and how to treat it. And so we have this program, what I call the postage stamp consensus of normal, which is so narrow, it's beyond laughable. And that is the perception that dominates most people's perceptions of reality. So we have a situation where, according to mainstream science, the electromagnetic spectrum is 0.005% of what exists. Even within that sliver of frequency, visible light, this planet, equivalent to the perceived size of the universe, is the equivalent of a billionth of a pinhead by comparison. And yet we still have people going, do you think there's other life other than humans? Hello, what? Are you kidding? But that's the power of the program, the perception program. And when people like me say, actually, there's a non-human force manipulating human affairs, it's like, that's hysterical. What? But of course, because of the way the system works, and the way the education program works, and the way the media works, the mainstream media works, they've never heard that what we call the world is a tiny sliver of frequency. They've never heard that. They don't realise that when they look through their eyes, they're not looking at everything that they can see in that space and